First of all, thank you all for joining. I think in today's session, we are going to discuss using AI to build products. Now, the agenda of the session is pretty simple. I'll start by talking about myself, which is about the instructor. We go into like skills and responsibilities of growth PMs. Then we move on to the AI capabilities that we are seeing in 2025, right? These capabilities are fast changing. So in 2026, this might get to somewhere. But for now, let's focus on where it is right now, what is actually possible today. And then once we understand the skills of growth PMs and the capabilities, we can finally get into the segment, which is how do you use AI to grow products, right? We'll take a 10 minutes break after that. And after the break, we'll have two sections. First is like, what are the skills you need to become a stronger growth PM? And this is where like we'll look at like how can you use AI as a PM, or how can you use AI to build products, right? And finally, we will do a 15 minutes Q&A towards the end of the session. So that's the agenda for the session. So let's start with a little bit of intro about myself. So I'm Deepak. I've been on a mission to help PMs. I started with Growth Catalyst newsletter in 2020. It has grown to 15,000 subscribers now. I also wrote a book, Tech Simplified, which was aimed at helping non-technical PMs pick technical jobs. This book has now almost 15,000 copies sold. And then in 2023, 2 years back, I started pmcurve. As part of pmcurve, I built numerous programs, starting from advanced growth program to product sense and strategy. And just now we launched Tech and AI program, where we cover like advanced topics in tech and AI product management, right? I also have built a few free courses. So I keep doing sessions like this, but I've also done like AI assisted prototyping, which is a free course available on pmcurve.com. So you can go and check it there, right? So that's broadly like the reason I'm conducting this session. In terms of experience in growth, because we are talking about growth today, I started my product journey as head of product analytics at housing.com, and I built data science products and data products at Housing. Not much of growth there, but Upgrad, I joined as the first PM. I became director of product and I was leading the entire growth charter. In fact, I built the entire growth charter for Upgrad. Now, this was like very small company back then. Now it's a $3 billion startup. MX Player, again, another company which had like 50 million daily active users. I joined there as head of growth. I actually looked at product growth. I also looked briefly at content and marketing growth there. And after MX Player, I joined Flipkart, where I led games and voice search and assistant, right? In both cases, since I was the GPM, once you get to a certain level, like a group PM or a director of product, you start overseeing the growth of the product along with the development, right? So I looked at games growth and games business. I also looked at growing voice search through various features. And finally, I think my last stint before pmcurve has been a senior director of product at Unacademy. Unacademy is, for those of you who don't know, is one of the largest education tech platforms in India. It has millions of users, and it was last valued at around $3 billion. Right. So as part of Unacademy, I was looking at entire learner experience, including free learner growth through SEO, through content, and through product interventions. Right. So as you'll see, like growth has been a consistent theme in my life for last like 8 years. And along with that, since I've been interested in AI, that gives me a unique vantage point on how AI is going to sort of change growth. So that's my introduction. Now, this introduction is there for you to, of course, like ask questions related to areas I worked in, but this also gives you a good sense of first, like why you should listen to me, because that's a question I believe you should be continuously asking in a world full of a lot of noises. And second, it also tells you some idea, gives you some context of where I'm coming from, right? So that's my introduction. Now let's quickly move into the first segment, which is skills and responsibility of the growth PM. Now, I'm assuming like most of the people who have joined here are PMs, so they are broadly familiar with this. So we'll not take a lot of time going through this section, right? So essential skills for PMs, growth PMs is, I would say like there are 5 essential skills beyond the core skills of PM. Like you have to be very strong at data. You have to have a very strong hold at experimentation. You have to be good with user research. you have to understand marketing and business while you are not leading any marketing or business teams as a part of growth product management. You have to understand like how marketing works, how business works, what are the constraints of marketing, what are the constraints of business, and so on and so forth. And finally, you have to understand strategy, because growth is, I would say, like every PM starts at various levels, but ultimately, like as you move into leadership levels, what you end up realizing is every PM role eventually lead to a growth PM role, because first you are building products, you are shipping products and all that. But ultimately, the ultimate test of you as a product leader is going to be, can you grow the product? Can you move the metrics? Can you move retention? Can you move activation? Can you move acquisition, right? Can you move revenue? That is the ultimate litmus test of any PM. So, which is why like I keep telling budding PMs that every PM graduates to become a growth PM in their career, because growth is a very, very essential skill for PMs. And in modern times, I think we are seeing that in places, right? So I think we can see that like Airbnb making the move to move PMs to PMM roles is exactly that, which is like, we don't need technical PMs, but we need PMs. Airbnb is sort of saying we need PMs who can think about user and revenue growth. And they can build products which lead to the some outcomes in user and revenue growth. And similarly, like you'll see this move coming over the next few years more fast, because as AI kind of bridges that gap of project management and context between different teams, PM's primary role will become either like growing products or building very, very technical products, which become kind of a moat for a company, right? So tech and growth are going to be like two very, very different vertical skills, right? So most PM roles will lead to like specialization in one of them. Now, again, that's my thesis. So take it with a pinch of salt. Let's see how the area evolves. Now, coming to talk about responsibilities of a growth PM. So when you start as a growth PM, it could be one of these areas. You are either, if you're working at a startup, you're supposed to launch and get a product to product market fit, which is PMF. If you're working in one of the post PMF stage companies, which is growth stage companies, you could manage one or more of these, right? So you could be either responsible for getting user growth by building a freemium or a free trial or those sort of things, right? So using product interventions to bring users on the platform. You could also be looking at onboarding, which is like once the user is brought on the platform by marketing, how do we get them to get to aha moment? Which is to say that how do we get them to experience the product value as soon as possible so that they understand what product is all about, and because of that, they will actually stick to the platform, right? So that is the onboarding or activation sort of PM. And then there is like a third type of PM, and this is the hardest skill, I would say, for a growth PM to gain, which is you're supposed to move the retention and engagement of the platform up. Now, retention is one of the hardest metrics to move for any platform. And believe me, when I say that, I've seen like multiple platforms. It's like it takes multi-year effort sometimes to just like move retention by a couple of percentage points. So retention and engagement PMs are also there. Usually, retention and engagement is not handled to a junior PM. It's usually like a senior or a lead PM who is looking at entire pod. And they have like a couple of PMs because it's such a broad category and it is the core of any product, right? If a product can crack retention and engagement, acquisition, onboarding, activation, revenue, all these are like, I would say, side products. They're easier to solve. So retention and engagement growth PM who also focuses on core value of the product, but also like how do you build more and more things so that people keep coming back to the product, right? And finally, there is revenue PM, which is monetization PM, who are supposed to build like payment systems, who are supposed to sort of figure out what are the right tiered plans, for example, in SaaS products, but who are also supposed to build, let's say, pricing engine in companies like Flipkart, where like the core thing is actually the revenue is dependent on how good algorithm you can build in pricing and all, right? So revenue can range anywhere from defining how to monetize the product to sort of how do you optimize the monetization of the product, right? And then you also have a third category of PM who are like ad revenue products, where they manage the entire like how do they optimize ad spots on the platform to gain maximum revenue, right? So companies like, let's say, companies which are very large like Reddit or Meta, they have like these ad PMs who are looking at revenue. But broadly, like if you're a growth PM, this will be like one or more of these areas will be your responsibilities, right? So that sets the context of what we mean in this session when we talk about skills and what we mean when we talk about responsibilities. Okay. Now, very quickly, let's look at where AI is in 2025. So AI is right now extremely good at researching any knowledge base. And if you have not heard, like go and read about RAG, which is like retrieval augmented generation, which is you give it a document, it is very good at taking some info out of that document for you, no matter how long the document is. And it is also like you can even put the entire context of the company in a software like Glean, and it will be able to give you everything out of that knowledge bases of a company, right? So AI is actually extremely good at researching all the knowledge bases. And we are seeing a lot of products built primarily around this, right? The second, AI is extremely good at understanding unstructured data. So your support tickets, your ratings and reviews, like something that VPMs were supposed to spend time gleaning through like this data one by one because data science could not solve this, that problem is solved, which means that you don't have to spend a lot of time looking at support tickets. You don't have to spend a lot of time looking at user interview scripts. You don't have to spend a lot of time looking at, let's say, ratings and reviews. AI is able to get insights from this data. AI is also able to uh, get you deeper into this, right? And there are products built around this. Products like Craftful or like one of my friend like Prashant has this Zeta.io, right? So people are building these products around AI understanding unstructured data, even in product domain. The third is AI is extremely good, actually. Let me change this. AI is extremely good at coding. In fact, like AI is so good at coding that people are questioning whether like coding is even a skill you should learn at this point of time. Now, of course, like any hype, there is a, a lot more hype in that, which like AI is not good at like some of the stuff that coders do. But at the same time, like it is extremely good at writing 70-80% of the code that we need to write. Only in the novel cases, only in the cases where it has not seen much, where only in cases where the context is very, very high, millions of lines of code, only in cases where like it has not seen that sort of knowledge like beforehand, it is not good. But the thing is, most of the people in the world are not building anything novel. Most of the times we are building websites which were already built by hundreds of people. So AI is extremely good at that sort of coding, right? So good at research, good at unstructured data, good at coding. AI is getting definitely better at maths. Initially, like when people were giving, if you remember GPT-3, people were giving it like puzzles, math puzzles, and it was actually failing very badly at that. And people said that it does not have reasoning skills that like humans have. And now if you look at AI, it can beat humans, most like a lot of humans in maths, because it is able to score, let's say 80-85% accuracy on graduate level maths. And the fifth thing that you need to understand is the limitation. AI is not so good on long-term strategic tasks because they require a lot of reasoning, a lot of context, and context, not just in terms of the org context, it also requires context of competition, context of resources and everything, right? AI is not very good at long-term strategic tasks because as you increase the context window of AI, as you add more and more tokens or more and more words in simple language, as you add more and more words to sort of knowledge base of AI, its performance starts degrading, right? And there are like research papers around that. You can go and read it, but somewhere around 1 million or 100K, in fact, somewhere around 100K context length, it starts sort of the degradation starts. Somewhere around 1 million, it becomes a little more unreliable, right? So AI is not good at the long-term strategic task, and you have to keep that in mind while you are trying to get your strategy document created by AI, right? Okay. Now that we have this context, let's talk about how do we use AI to grow products. So in this section, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the areas, the responsibilities that we talked about. I'm going to talk about the responsibilities one by one. I'm going to get into like what were we doing, let's say a couple of years back, 1 year back, or what a lot of teams are even doing right now. And then I'm going to talk about how do we sort of move from there, use AI to do it better, right? Or more importantly, in some cases, what has changed drastically, so drastically that you have to change the way of working, right? So let's talk about PMF. So in traditional PMF problems, what used to happen is you used to look at two things. First is cohort retention curves, which is to say that you look at like of the users who came in January, for example, the new users who came in January, how many of them came back in February, then March, then April, and May and June. And if you could say that a fraction of these people, let's say 20-25% of these people are coming again and again and again in every month, which means that the retention curve will flatten, which is 25% are coming every month. So the curve is not going to go down. It's 25% in Feb, March, April, May, June, July, August. So if it flattens, it's usually a proof of product market fit, which means that people need this product again and again. And that is a sign that whatever you have built is actually so much useful that you can charge for it, right? So that was the definition of PMF. But if the curve was something which is like declining or hitting zero at some point, you knew that you are going to keep losing users one by one every month, and then you will have to fill all users all over again over these months, right? So the growth will not be compounding. The growth will in fact like go up to a certain level, and then you'll always need capital to add more growth. In worst cases, even the capital won't solve your problem because suppose like your retention curve is going to zero in month 3, which means every 3 months you have to recruit X million users for your product to do well, right? And in most of these cases, like the growth does not happen because it's a leaky bucket. It's almost like every amount of water that you're putting in the bucket is going out. So PMF, I think we used to look at cohort retention curves to understand like what is PMF, what is not. And we also used to look at NPS surveys, right? This is a very famous survey from one of my favorite like growth thinkers, Son Ellis. So he said this rule of 40, where like if 40% of people tell you that they will be very disappointed if they could no longer use your product, you have a product market fit. And he did this exercise by talking to a lot of companies, and the products which had met this rule of 40 usually had like strong PMF, strong need in the market. But if it is less than 40, your goal should be to move it to 40. And Raul Bora wrote a very beautiful blog around it. Like I think it's titled Superhuman's Journey to Product Market Fit, or Superhuman's Road to Product Market Fit. It's a beautiful blog. Definitely read it if you haven't. But what you see, like this is a blog post written in 2020, around 2020, and it got very, very popular. But these are the things we were talking about when we were talking about PMF. And now with AI, I think there are few things which have changed drastically, right? The first thing is AI helps you do rapid prototyping. So you can use tools like Replit, Bolt, V0, Lovable, and the MVP that you define for your product, which is a scratchy version, like scrappy version of your product, you can actually build using Replit or Bolt very, very quickly, right? So AI helps you do rapid prototyping very, very quickly, which means that if you are not doing it in your pursuit to PMF, one, like you're losing a lot of time because you are going to software developers, they are coding it, and then you are reiterating. And second, somebody else is building very, very fast using these tools, which means that they will have an advantage. They will have the first mover advantage to PMF, and then they can potentially gain a higher market share, right? So first thing that changed around the way we work towards PMF is the cycles get a lot faster because of this rapid prototyping using AI tools like Replit, Bolt, and others, right? The second thing is the most important part of PMF, if you look at, is like you're looking at data for like is it broken? How much is it broken? And you're looking at survey to understand why it's broken, right? The good thing is, like, now, whatever reviews, whatever support tickets, whatever sales calls, whatever sort of survey results you have at any point of time, your sales team is going and meeting clients every day. Your support team is getting tickets every day. You can analyze all of that and you can create a continuous feedback mechanisms, which means that you are getting some feedback on your product every day. You don't have to go and talk to users for 2 hours for it, but you are actually getting automated feedback to your inbox every day, which means that if you combine rapid prototyping with rapid feedback, it becomes a very, very fast cycle. It becomes 10x faster than what we could do before, right? And the third thing is you can use AI to do competitive research in many ways. Now, I know most people are going to deep research and asking this question of how do I generate, like, can you talk about competition of pmcurve, or can you talk about competition of Flipkart and all that? But you can actually be very, very creative in generating competitive insights. So I know a friend of mine who had created like AI agents which track how much of the competition websites are changing every week. So it actually stores the snapshots of different pages of websites. It takes another set of snapshots a week after. It compares if they have launched something new. And by doing that, he is able to, in fact, train, I would say, his brain, just with the way we train our brain to remember data. And over time, like, we keep remembering all the data about our product and we understand products very, very well, how our user behave and all that. I would say, like, if somebody does this every week for their competition, in a year, like, they would become very, very strong industry expert, right? They would also get a sense of, like, when competition is launching something and 2 months later they're rolling it back, like, that in itself gives them a strong insights on, okay, we should not be doing this, right? So a lot of internal data, of course, you have, but you also have a lot of external data, which can get into your PMF, but it can get into a lot of other things also, even like in improving the product or retention or activation or something like that. So this is how AI changes the PMF. In short, AI helps you accelerate time to PMF by doing continuous feedback, by doing rapid prototyping using AI, and finally, by helping you do continuous competitor research. Now let's talk about traditional acquisition. Like, after PMF, the next step is basically acquiring users. And there are like 4 or 5 ways in which most companies acquire users. Now, a PM does not need to actually sit through some of these channels, like paid acquisition. PMs don't need to actually understand very, very well. Sales led, they don't need to understand very, very well, or they didn't need to actually get involved very, very well. But my sense is, if you're a PM working in growth, you should actually build a very good understanding of acquisition. And here is the reason why. So one of the things you'll realize if you've worked enough as a growth PM is retention will sort of, you are improving retention through experiments, but still year on year, what you might see is your retention has not moved up. So your A/B tests are telling you that between control and test, the retention has moved up, but actually, like, the overall retention has gone down over the last year. So what happens? A lot of times the culprit is the quality of acquisition keeps changing. So a year back, the quality of acquired users you are getting are not the same as the quality of acquired users you are getting now. So in a way, like, your experiment is flawed because the intake in itself has changed over the last year. So while you have done a lot of product improvement, your overall retention has gone down, or your overall activation has gone down. Now, if you as a PM don't understand acquisition very, very well, you can't point your finger to where has that problem come from. Has it come from your freemium or free trial changes? Has it come from SEO or video based acquisition that you're getting? Has it come from paid acquisition channels like Instagram, Facebook, and all that? Has it come from referrals, or has it come from like uh, sales-led acquisition, right? If you work in a SaaS setup, like sales-led is something that you have to understand. And if you don't understand it, you'll always struggle to figure out like why the overall number is not moving. Because to understand why the overall number is not moving, you have to start from the beginning, which is like, who are the users who are coming to my platform? And then what are they doing? How are they getting activated? How are they getting retained? And how are they getting monetized? Right? So this is something a lot of PMs don't do because they feel like acquisition is something which is taken care by marketing. But as a PM, I think we understand it best when I say that you don't have to code, but still have to understand tech. You don't have to do marketing campaigns, but still have to understand marketing very, very well. Right? So focus on understanding the acquisition channels very, very well. And these are like the 5 acquisition channels that we usually see. Now, if you look at how AI changes this, so first thing first, like product-led acquisition through freemium or free trials, we just discussed that AI lets you build software faster. AI is extremely good at coding now, which means the cost to build software or content, because AI is also building a lot of video and text and image content. So the barrier to build software or content is actually low, which is why we are seeing the entire like social networks flooding with a lot of content and a lot of AI generated content. In fact, just the other day, lesswrong.com actually changed their policy. Less Wrong, by the way, if you don't know, definitely go. It's a pretty good forum for like people interested in AI. But it changed its policy to say that we are seeing a lot of AI generated content on our platform. So we are going to start detecting it and start penalizing people just to make sure that people don't just go to AI, put a question or create a blog through that and put it on the forum, right? So what you'll see is these are like the unintended consequences, but even in software, you'll see a lot of features getting built faster, which means the cost of developing that software is not very high, which means that people can actually start offering these software features in freemium or free trials. And you should be tracking it at the very least. Even if you don't want to do anything about it, you should be studying your competition, freemium or free trials very, very closely as a growth PM. We would not be saying this thing like 2 years back, because 2 years back, it was constrained by like development velocity and all that. But now that those equations have changed, the laws of physics have changed in that sense, you should be looking closely to your competitors, if not doing anything about it. The second thing is AI lowers like the barrier to create content, which means we are going to see a lot of content inflation, right? So a lot of content inflation means that you have to focus a lot on quality of the content rather than the sort of, I would say, the quantity of the content and all that. So you have to build a very distinct voice, a very distinct brand. And if you don't do that, you will lose your edge in sort of social channels, social content channels. But you might also lose your edge in SEO, right? Because SEO, literally, Google is trying to create answers, generate answers and give it to people, which means that you can't rely on your SEO for very long for organic traffic. Right. The third thing is like paid acquisition. Now, in paid acquisition, there is not much changing apart from creative generation and real-time optimization. But here is the thing that you will be expected in next few months if you're not already. Marketing team is not great at understanding which of the AI platforms are good for creative generation or real-time optimization of marketing. That is where you can actually help them figure out which of the platforms are good and onboard those platforms in your company, right? So in paid acquisition, this is like a very, very good thing that is happening, and you should be aware of like how to bank on that. Referrals, not much is changing. In sales led, again, there has been a major change. And I will say the same thing that I said in paid acquisition. While you don't need to build these tools yourself, you need to actually help the sales team evaluate some of these tools and make sure they make the right decision. Make sure the right data is tracked and everything. The right data actually flows through those feedback software that you're using, so that you're not blindsided by like lack of data in sales and all that. So the idea is what you'll realize after all this is actually, in a sense, AI is affecting everything through acquisition, right? And what's more important is with AI, you can actually build a lot of dynamic landing pages now, which was not possible, I would say, like 3 years back. You could still do it, but the cost of building them was very high. With AI, it's actually possible. You can build dynamic landing pages even with, like, I can say something like a Replit or Lovable, right? And the second thing that you can do is if you build some AI features, you can use your socials to drive virality, which is like when it comes to AI features, a lot of people are interested in seeing these features, trying out these features, which means if you're building some feature for the first time in your product, which is a AI first feature, you can actually use your socials to get people excited about it, get people to share it, and then that can bring a lot of traffic, right? So even in product-led acquisition, like referrals or freemium free trials or something like landing pages or uh, AI features, you can get a lot of customers on your platform if you're using AI very, very well. Right. So that's about, if I have to summarize this section, basically content-led, which is SEO and video and everything, sales-led and product-led, all three kind of acquisition are going to change most due to recent AI development. Now, what you need to do is you need to basically just adopt AI faster. If your company is actually like affected by one of the major channels is actually one of these, you need to adopt AI much, much faster as a growth PM. Right. So this is your acquisition. Now, if you look at onboarding, now onboarding is where I feel like a lot of people will get excited because most of the growth PMs have worked on onboarding, retention, engagement. So onboarding, like so far, we have seen like guided onboarding flow where we just take the user, tell them what to do and what not to do, like when they come to the platform for the first time. We send them welcome emails and notifications. And then in some cases, we also have humans to onboard. Like if you have taken enterprise software like Salesforce and all, you'll see humans actually onboarding you on the software. Now with AI coming in, what is going to happen is, what is happening already is actually the guided onboarding flows actually become very, very adaptive. So depending on the user, they can adapt themselves. Just like a dynamic landing page changes its messaging according to the user, these can adapt onboarding flows according to the user. A very simple example could be, suppose you have a multilingual app, you would want like the messaging and everything to adapt, not just translate, actually adapt to the language, right? In fact, the icons and all you would also want to be adapted to a particular language. Because if it's like Spanish people, like you want something which expands to, which actually resonates with people who speak Spanish versus, let's say, English versus Hindi versus something else. The second thing is what is going to happen is with AI, AI is able to interpret data in real time. So far, what used to happen is you took the onboarding data, you actually created some cuts, you understood what are the friction points, where are people dropping, what are they struggling with, and then you went to your software development team and you actually told them to do something about it, right? With AI, the good thing is if you combine this with the chatbot or agents, AI agents, what can happen is AI can process the real-time data. It can understand whether the user is struggling in onboarding, getting to the aha moment, and it can actually either trigger a chat or it can actually adapt the surface so that it creates a message looks like you're struggling. Why don't you see this video? Right now, this video is not present usually in the flow, but this video could appear whenever like you see the person struggling. And by see, what I mean is basically you have an AI model that actually detects if people are struggling in onboarding, right? So real-time identification and resolution of friction points kind of makes a product very, very usable. The usability of the product improves multifold. And which is why I believe like AI, besides like changing acquisition to a large extent, onboarding is where it will have the most impact for PMs, right? Not to mention whatever humans were doing, now AI agents can do. And what I mean by AI agents is not just AI agents explaining you how to do it. AI agents can set up the entire process with by just like consulting you on some details. You don't even have to do something. An AI agent can actually set up the Salesforce for you. An AI agent can actually set up the HubSpot for you and all that, right? So you have to understand like AI changes a lot in onboarding, but broadly, like it leads to adaptive onboarding flow. It leads to real-time identification and resolution of frictions. And it leads to AI agents who are going to replace some of the humans in the loop, right? So the good news is if you are an early adopter of AI, right, it will improve your onboarding funnel significantly because your competitors are not doing it. You are doing it, which means that a lot of people are going to get retained on your platform, a lot of new users specifically, right? And it can definitely provide a near-term advantage, like 6 months, 1 year sort of advantage. But over time, what you're going to see is, the whole thing kind of becomes table stacks. So you have this 6 months to 1 year window in most companies where you can use AI to improve your onboarding funnel, and you will be able to sort of get some goodness out of it. Over time, the thing is everybody will catch up and it will become table stakes. Like you have to do adaptive, you have to sort of remove friction on the go, and then you have to create like AI agents if you are an enterprise SaaS, so that people don't have to get involved in onboarding a client and all that, right? So that's broadly around activation. Now, the third thing is retention and engagement. And traditionally, the people who are working in retention and engagement have cared a lot about core product value, have cared a lot about building new features, community, content that can increase the usage frequency of the product, right? So usually the teams working in retention care about like the natural frequency is a term they use, which means that naturally, what is the natural behavior of the user? Suppose you are creating a podcast app. Now, the natural frequency of that for people who travel to work in their car could be daily. The natural frequency for people who sort of don't drive in their own car and all that, but occasionally listen to podcast on weekend could be weekly and all that. And your goal as a PM in retention is to make sure that your retention or your frequency of usage, your engagement frequency is closer to the natural frequency of the need. Now, if you want to increase engagement and retention, another way to do it is basically introduce features which increase your overall natural frequency of usage. Add community so that people are coming and checking these things, different things, or add content so that people are coming and consuming content. But you can do via any of these things, but the idea is like to increase the usage frequency. The third thing is basically a lot of triggers, because a lot of times people forget. So you add a lot of triggers through notifications and emails to get people back on the app. And if they totally uninstall your app or they're not coming through notifications and emails, what you do is you actually run re-engagement campaigns through marketing, where marketing is showing them, why don't you come back and buy this shoes that you had checked and all that, right? But mostly like you either focus on core product value or you figure out adjacencies where you can build more features, community content to engage users, or you try to remind people of the value that they experienced, or finally you re-engage them if they go out of the app. Most of the retention or engagement actually works around these four levers. Now, if you look at how AI actually changes it, what gets better is in the core product value, search and recommendations become very, very good. Because now in search and recommendations, where we were dependent on, let's say, NER sort of models, which were named entity recognition, you look at like some entities in search or some entities in catalog, and you try to match those keywords. You're not anywhere limited to that. With LLMs, the context, the data becomes very, very rich for search and recommendations. So search and recommendation of the core product becomes very, very good. And if you're a PM who is working on a retention problem, but don't own search and recommendation, I'll definitely ask you to work with the team which is working in search and recommendation to get them to use LLMs and all the newer technologies so that your overall core product value increases, because search and recommendation is how people discover most of the products on most of the websites. So if there is an opportunity to improve that, like you should be improving that, right? The second thing is the churn prediction algorithms will also get a lot better, because so far we were looking at doing, some data modeling, some regression analysis and say, okay, if the person has done this activity, they're going to churn. If a person has not done this, they're going to churn. Now you have the benefit of adding all the support tickets to the data. You have the benefit of looking at reviews and triangulating the reviews. You have a benefit of looking at the surveys that a user has taken over their lifetime on the product. And you can merge all of this with quantitative data to create a very, very good churn prediction algorithm. right? So this gets a lot better, like search recommendation and churn prediction, which I would say define core of the product. Even if search and recommendation are not part of your product, suppose you create a SaaS software, the core product can improve so much by using AI, right? Because you can store a lot of context of the user. You can actually do a lot of auto search. For example, Shopify built this uh, auto creation of product descriptions by taking keywords of product from the sellers, right? So AI can do a lot of these things, even in like SaaS products or B2B products. You can use AI to ease out the job of your customer. And the reason people are using any SaaS product is because they want to become more productive. So you are making them more productive by adding small features of AI, or even sometimes big features of AI in your product. Right. So your product definitely core value gets better by using AI. But what gets exponentially better in this phase is actually like the velocity of features that you can ship increases exponentially, which means that you're not limited anymore by development speed. You are limited by the insight that you have. And we'll come to why insight is important, why I'm not saying that shipping more is good. What I'm telling you is velocity is not a great thing, right? Velocity is a good thing. Like as velocity increases, I think the value people get out of your product may increase, but there is a point after which velocity stops paying off. And that is where insights become very, very important, right? So velocity of features increases exponentially, which means a premium on getting insight around what to build becomes very, very high, right? So people with judgment, for example, will do extremely good job and will become very, very valuable to the companies. The second thing is you can do like user research using AI. So the entire discovery of what are people feeling and what mindset they are using the product, what mindset they're leaving the product and all that, you can do a lot of user research using AI. And which means for the first time, see, a lot of PMs talk about user research. A lot of PMs actually don't do it. For the first time, you don't have to spend a lot of time on user research. It's almost like it can synthesize the results for you. Sometimes there are platforms which will do user research on your behalf using AI, right? So you can get the user research done. It can synthesize the user research for you. All you have to do is actually just look at the results. But if you really want to gain insights, which is what we were talking about, I would still suggest you do the research part yourself. See, there are like when you are doing research as a PM, as a growth PM, and talking to a user, what I have realized is like I have actually gone and read the summaries of research reports that is done by some third-party agencies. And I have gone and I have talked to real users. The biggest difference, the objective difference is when you're talking to somebody else, you're getting millions of data points that you don't capture on, let's say, a workbook. You can read their micro expressions. You can look at the tone of their voice. You can look at like, you're looking at the environment they're living in. You're looking at the interruptions they're having and all that, right? You never get to experience those things. You never get to really describe who this person is if you're just reading reports which are done by AI or third-party agencies. So at least like what I will do is, since it saves a lot of your time in synthesis and all, I would actually recommend you to go and do the research part yourself and let AI record, synthesize, transcribe, share insights out of that, but do the research part yourself so that subconsciously like you get all those data points and you can make better decisions, right? Now, the thing is, what I said is velocity is not a great thing. Like, no matter what people tell you, like about execution, we have been hearing all this debate around execution. It's the velocity of execution that matters. I think all of that is going to go wrong very, very fast, provided that LLM solve for that exact velocity that people have been pushing the teams, development teams, and PM teams for. And the reason is because too much changes in a product in a short span increase cognitive load of users, right? If you ship one feature every day, like you all remember like how OpenAI became a lot more complex, ChatGPT, at some point, and then they realized that and they fixed that mistake. by saying that the models will get auto-selected and all that. But it's still a very complex product because they were shipping a lot of features too fast, right? And what you need to do is cut down the cognitive load as much as possible when you are increasing your shipping velocity. That is one way of tackling that. The second way of tackling that is increasing your hit rate, which means that if you have an insight, strong insight into what will succeed, your success rate with any feature, like if you ship 10 features, 8 of them will be successful. Versus if you're just shipping and shipping, of 10 features, 4 will be successful, which means users are learning 6 other features and then they're never going to use it. That's not a good thing because you're putting the burden on your users of deciding the features. You're not taking the insights on what will definitely be useful for this feature and for this user, right? And you have to understand like the cognitive science to make sense of it. When I say like you have to reduce cognitive load, what it means is basically, see, a very simple framework that I use and you can use also is basically there is like whenever you present a new information to somebody, there is that new information load that is definitely going in, which is like intrinsic load. But then there are two different kind of loads as well. One is germane load, which is like whenever you hear about something, you want to connect it to what you already know, or there is a good chance you'll forget about it. So you're trying to draw analogies. You're trying to connect it to your existing knowledge tree. If you as a PM can build features in a way that it actually builds that for the user, it explains it in such a way that users are able to understand in their business context, in the product context they're using and all that, germane load will reduce drastically. They don't have to make the connection themselves. You are making it for them. And the third is extraneous load, which is like the extra things that you keep, extra information that you push, right? And as a PM, you have to cut down a lot on this information, right? Which is why like we are also hearing the phrase that taste will become very, very important. And taste is nothing but making sure that the product is as smooth as possible by reducing the intrinsic load, germane load, and extraneous load, right? Unnecessary data. So that's broadly retention and engagement. Now, the core features. So just to summarize what we talked, right? The core features in search and discovery should integrate, or core features for that matter, for your entire product, you should reassess on whether they should integrate AI to improve overall value and retention. The second is discovery needs to be continuous. It needs to be across different channels with much shorter cycle. And when I say discovery, it's the same word I use, like it's continuous discovery, which is like user research, user insights needs to be very, very continuous. And you need to look across channels on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, rather than looking at a monthly basis, right? Because too much is changing too fast. Okay, so now I think we have covered the most important parts. Let's talk a little bit around growth strategy, right? So as a PM, when you create your roadmap, you mostly had to do North Star metric definition, growth modeling to predict growth mathematically, prioritization on roadmap. You had to do some competitive intelligence so that you can pitch that we should build this because this is a table stakes now. And then you are also thinking at times about unfair advantage that you can have in your product. Now, the thing is, there's not much that changes in strategy because in strategy, AI is more of a thought partner than actually like the doer, right? But what you definitely need to understand with advent of AI is a lot of unfair advantages are fading. Something like SEO, which was working very, very well, which was a very, very strong advantage for companies, is actually fading, disappearing suddenly, right? Which means that you need to realign your org to new channels and new strategies of growth, new strategies of unfair advantages, right? Second is like, even if it does not help you a lot with strategy, it can give you a lot of data and it can synthesize a lot of market research. It can do, in fact, like once you start executing, it can give you a very short feedback loop around how the features that you have shipped are performing, right? So which is where like it becomes very, very useful. And finally, like your growth modeling overall improves. In fact, like before now, I've always used Excel sheets to create growth models. I think for the first time, I was just using this Facebook forecasting model, Profit. So Profit is something that Neural Profit is what they launched in 21, which uses neural networks for forecasting, right? So I was just playing around with that, and that's much, much more stronger because it accounts for seasonality, hour of the day, and channels and all that. Uh, Rather than like just creating a simple like retention and acquisition based growth model, right? So that's a strategy for you. So just like summarizing it, you will get quicker and better feedback cycles so that you can inform strategy that can be very, very advantageous for you. Now, there are a couple of more things. One is like data analysis and experimentation. While it is not one of the responsibilities, it is something which very strongly affects growth PMs, right? So what you need to, so in data analysis, we were just like looking at key metrics and KPIs. We were looking at dashboards and reports. We were looking at cohort analysis, funnel analysis, A/B testing, and all that. What AI does is like some of you, if you've not checked it, definitely go and check Query GPT. So Uber recently launched this. Basically, for their scale, they wanted to build something. Otherwise, this is available in like some BI tools also. But basically, how do you use natural language to just get any data? What was the sales last month? How many people? How many new users who came on last Sunday actually dropped off, have not come back, and all that? You can actually ask natural language query, and you don't have to wait for analysts to write this query in SQL and get you this data. So it makes the whole dashboard and metric review obsolete, right? Second is like you can also over time automate this insight discovery because anomaly detection algorithms, pattern recognition algorithms can actually automate insight for your entire org. Right. And my sense is the analyst job is shift from writing queries to actually automated insight discovery. This is where they need to spend most of their times. Third is data democratization becomes very, very important, which means that everybody can access data by just asking query in natural language, which means that people are not operating with blind spots. Everybody who has an intent can get data. It can lead to better discussions. It can lead to better strategies. It can lead to better operations, right? And all of that can be advantage if you actually use it. If you actually build a natural language data query interface in your platform. And the last thing is your experimentation velocity increases a lot because there is faster development. And this is just a long shot, I would say, but I definitely see that when you can ship more than features you can test because you have a limited population and you need a particular sample size to get to the A/B test p-value and significance. What will happen is there will be an intermediate layer which will perform synthetic experiments. Just like we are now generating synthetic data, we will be modeling our users and performing synthetic experiments on that, right? In some pockets, it's already happening where people are trying to simulate a segment of the population using AI. But it might be very, very useful and applied to experimentation. Again, something which is very futuristic, not here yet. So don't try to sort of use it. This is what I'm calling out here. But the rest of the first three things you should be doing today in your org, right? And overall, this is what I'm most excited about, if you ask me, besides acquisition and activation, which is this data democratization and high velocity of experiments can lead to a much faster rate for learning. If you are a PM who optimizes for learning about users, learning about market, this could be the best thing, best tool that is available to you, right? You can shift fast and everybody can see through data at all points of time very, very easily, which means you can get feedback from any place, right? So this is data. And the last part is like revenue growth. Now in revenue growth, I don't see like much happening. You can do conversion path optimization. You can do revenue for forecasting and LTV, just like modeling, but I don't think like much will change in revenue growth besides like the obvious things that we have already talked about, like improvement in sales processes and all that, right? So just to summarize, like AI definitely helps you accelerate time to PMF. AI impacts content-led, sales-led, and product-led acquisition channels. So if these affect your product today, these are like one of the key channels for your product today, you need to adopt AI faster. Third, novelty of AI features can actually be used as a growth lever. Fourth, for early adopters in onboarding, for early adopters of AI in onboarding, your onboarding funnel can improve significantly, and it can be a good advantage. But over time, you should be aware that it will be table stakes, which means over time, you're in fact like it could be that your funnel again drops down. Right. Then there is like the core features of the product, including search and discovery, can benefit a lot if you reassess every feature in your platform on how AI changes that particular feature. Right. Discovery needs to be continuous and across channels with shorter cycles. Quick and better feedback cycles can inform your roadmap and strategy if you build workflows around it. And finally, you'll have a much faster rate of learning because of data democratization and high velocity of experiments. Right. So this is what I would say, like the AI, how AI actually changes some of the things that we are talking about. Now let's take a, I would say, 10 minutes break. We will reconvene at 10:10, and then we will cover what, if you are a PM sitting today thinking, okay, then where should I go? Like, what should I learn? I think that is what we are going to cover after the break. In the break, one quick thing, like if you have some time, definitely check out the Advanced Growth Program. And we are integrating AI very, very closely in this program, this cohort. Right now, this program has a PMF, as in like it has been taken by around like 300 PMs from these companies. And the next cohort is in May, right? What's better is there is a 14-day refund policy, which means that if you don't like it, you can get the refund, full refund, right? So definitely like check out the program. Meanwhile, in the break, if you come early, definitely check the program and apply if it actually suits your taste, right? This is the last segment, and there are some questions that people have posted. Please feel free to post more, but I think there are enough questions that we can take it towards the end also. So now the last segment is skills to become a stronger growth PM. Now, there are three focus areas that you should, if you're thinking about how do I pick up the skills to become a better growth PM, I think there are three focus areas that you need to look at. The first is how do I use AI to become more efficient as a PM? Right, that is the first layer. The second is how do I use AI as a thought partner? And by the way, like first and second are not different levels. It's basically sometimes you need to use AI to become more efficient, but sometimes you can just use AI as a thought partner rather than letting it do some of the work that you are supposed to do. Right. In fact, you can say that in some cases it can even be counterproductive when you are using AI to become a thought partner. The third thing is like, how do I integrate AI into growth features so that I can grow user base and revenue? Now, third is what we have discussed, I would say, this entire session. Let's talk a little bit around first and second, and then let's come to the skills that you need as a growth PM to become better in this manner. So if you're using AI to become more efficient PM, just some rule of thumbs, generally speaking, Claude is better than other tools when it comes to PM work. In fact, Claude is much better for coding. Claude is also good at like PM work. For knowledge workers, Claude is better in terms of performance, and it's also very concise and clear and all that. Right. So definitely give Claude a try if you have not already, and then decide for yourself whether you want to keep using Claude or do you want to use other tools. The second is for deep research, it's still an evolving area, and all of the three tools have distinct advantage. Like Claude, deep research is brief, but again, it's insightful. ChatGPT has invested a lot in deep research, so it's actually pretty good. And Gemini also has the whole context of internet data and all that. So Gemini deep research is also pretty good. Most of the times I use actually all three when I'm researching a particular topic deeply. And I would recommend you do the same. Right. Now, the third thing is like definitely like start using AI to do data analysis, even if like don't wait for a tool. Right. Why don't you like ask AI to write a query for you, get regular reports using some AI agents and all that. So use AI to do all of these sort of tasks. Use AI to automate follow-ups. For example, you can integrate some of the tools to do follow-ups on your Jira tickets or Slack messages and all that. So design workflows using tools like n10 and others. If you are a little bit technically oriented, you can also use MCP, but use AI to automate follow-ups. Right. And finally, refer back to like other things that we discussed, like how do you use AI to become more efficient in experimentation, in data, in sort of designing features, designing strategy, and all that. If you do this much, I think you'll be good to become like more efficient as a PM. And one last thing I want to talk about is it's actually a journey. Like if you are looking for a one-stop solution to help you become a AI-powered PM, it's not going to happen. Right? What you'll realize is because AI is also changing so fast, you have to start focusing on the habit of using AI while you are doing the work rather than learning it all and then using it. In fact, I would say in this particular case, you should take the exact opposite approach, which is you start using the tools very, very regularly, do it inefficiently, and then you will figure out your way on how to use it optimally for your job. Don't rely a lot on the blog posts and all, because see, most of the people have written blog posts on how to use AI for your job in terms of what worked best for their workflows, what worked best for them. What, for example, a PM working in Google will find a blog post written by a PM working in some of the mid-stage companies very, very useless. But if you are, if there is something that you deeply resonate with, definitely go and try it out. But try it out, right? Don't try to figure out, oh, why is it not happening for me? Why is it happening for other people and all that? There's no point in doing that. The second is like use AI as a thought partner. Like you don't need to use AI to get things done only. Can you use it to generate insights from data? Sometimes I'll just take a lot of reviews, ratings, and all this data. I'll feed it into AI and I'll start chatting with it. And that is very, very useful, right? Second, you can use AI to generate a lot of analogous case studies. For example, if you're trying to solve activation problem, can you do deep research on activation in SaaS versus activation in attention platforms like Netflix and all, versus activation in, let's say, Meta and Google sort of companies. But the thing is, the more number of case studies you can study, the more number of case studies you can generate and read, I think the better your knowledge will be in solving that particular problem, right? And third is use AI as a critique. Not, it can be a critique, a very good critique to an idea. It can be a very good critique to a roadmap. It can be a very good critique to a design. Like a lot of times, I'm just using AI as a critique to whatever work, whatever email I've written, whatever things I've done. And I don't have to accept everything that it has to say, but sometimes it will actually hit a point which has been my blind spot, right? So use AI as a thought partner to generate insights, generate like as a learning tool and as a critique. And then like over time, you'll figure out more such use cases where it can actually be a very, very good thought partner for you. Right. And third is use AI to grow product user base and revenue. And this is everything that we discussed. So overall, like if I have to sum up this session to say that what are the skills that you should be focusing on broadly, the first is, of course, prompt engineering, which is how do you write prompts? Now, over time, the LLMs have become better at understanding the intent that you have, but still, if somebody writes a good prompt versus somebody writes a bad prompt, the person writing good prompt can generate a lot of useful things, whereas the person writing a bad prompt, simple like lazy prompt, will actually miss out on a lot of good information. And they'll have to find out that information through some other way, through some inefficient method, right? So not a win-win situation. The second thing, which is a skill you should be picking, is actually AI prototyping. So AI prototyping is something which is actually getting very popular. In fact, there is a free course that is there on pmcurve, and this is like I think 10-12 hours of content taken by 2000 odd PMs and all that. So you can just go, you can. It's all free, so you can just like understand like backend, front end, DB, chatbots, AI agents. You can go through all of that. So you can start anytime. You can learn it. Definitely learn AI prototyping. If you want to learn beyond this course, figure out other resources and learn from there. But definitely learn this. The third thing is learn how to use tools for continuous discovery or research. If you don't have budget for tools, create workflows and systems so that you can do continuous discovery by yourself, which is like uh, there is an engine which takes feedback from your ratings, reviews, from your tickets and all that, and it actually gives you insights, right? So definitely learn how to use AI for continuous discovery or research. The fourth thing, which we didn't talk much about, but very, very useful, is learn how to build AI human collaboration workflows. So there are tools like n8n. And using n8n Trail, you can go and ask just Claude, like, what are other workflow tools? And it will give you some list. But these are the tools which can sort of execute tasks one by one, get some human input if you have actually put that checkpoint, then execute tasks one by one. Like, so including like follow-ups to Jira tickets, to writing an email for you, to surfacing emails which are from CEO or executive team, to everything. Like they can be very, very useful. But more importantly, not just for your own productive gains, it can be useful for the entire team, right? For example, I have, for example, personally struggled a lot with implementing processes in teams because there's a lot of human dependency in processes. With workflows, that dependency can be reduced by a large extent, which means a lot of project management work that you are doing so far, which is usually like 20-30% of the work that a PM does, can get automated, right? So definitely understand this. And finally, if you are done with first four, then and then only focus on how do you evaluate a AI product? How do you evaluate a AI model for a particular use case? Now, this definitely falls in the purview of AI product management, but I don't think only people who are managing and building AI products should actually learn how to evaluate AI products. This is one sub-segment of AI product management, but every PM should know how to evaluate AI products or AI models. Because you are, like I said, you are going to sit in meetings where marketing will ask you to evaluate a product for them, their use case. You're going to sit out in a meeting where data team will ask you to evaluate a product for them. And because you are the person who have business context and technical context and marketing context and sales context, you are the best person suited for these evaluations, right? So next time your sales team actually asks you to evaluate something for them, you'll feel a lot more confident if you actually understand how to do AI product evaluation, which is very different, by the way, from software product evaluation. It's much easier to do software product evaluation. Very difficult to do AI model or AI product evaluation, right? So these are the skills you need to focus on. Few things you need to remember so that you don't go off the rails. The first thing is I think we all know that, but always keep in mind that despite all the progress that AI has made, AI still hallucinates. Even in deep research, where it's quoting links, it can hallucinate. So you have to cross-verify a lot of things. The second is you have to, at every step, whenever you're thinking of using an AI tool for your company, you have to ensure two things. One is user privacy and for within org, because most companies have this policy that some of the user info field should not be visible to any of the internal teams, right? So user privacy. And second is protection of org data. Like make sure that this data is not getting used to train, this data is not stored in places where it can be leaked and all that. So these are like two things that you have to ensure when you are actually building uh, some of the apps which have org data or user data, right? And the best way to look, best place to look is basically look at the kind of certifications these tools have, and also look if they have an enterprise tier. Any product which has enterprise tier has solved for enterprise security and everything, right? But in worst case, if you can't make up your mind, do a demo with the tool team and just ask them a direct question around user privacy and org data protection. The third is AI is bad at long-term strategic tasks, which require a lot of context and which also require a lot of long-term thinking. So don't try to uh, delegate this task to AI. Use it as a thought partner, but only as a thought partner. The fourth thing is don't weaken your thinking by using AI generated artifacts. There is this trend right now where people are feeling cool by generating PRDs through AI tools. The problem is, like, anybody who has written enough PRDs will realize that PRD is not a artifact to be given to other teams as much as PRD is a tool to think for yourself. When you sit at a blank piece of paper and you actually, or a document, and you actually write, force your brain to write something coherently, it becomes a thinking exercise. It becomes an insight generation exercise. It becomes a critical thinking exercise. I would say, like, by getting outsourcing this task to AI, you are just like weakening that muscle for yourself. And your insight generation will suffer, your long-term thinking will suffer, and other things will suffer because of that. So while you can use AI to evaluate your PRD, critique your PRD, better your PRD, something as simple as writing PRD with AI is an extremely foolish idea, right? So that would be all, I would say, that I had to cover in this session. Cool, folks. Thank you for joining. And yeah, I hope to see you folks in future sessions as well. Take care.